Happy Saturday morning, folks. Need to clear our area a little bit. And change gears a little bit. And we took the Check 38 away for a little bit. And we're going to do a little bit of painting. There it is. I was wondering where that was. Good, we'll take care of that in a second. Let's clear this area of all these little bits and bobs. Boy, it looks like a bunch of chickens just sat here and ate all these little bits of plastic that get cut off the model. Which the first couple of them that I put together, I didn't think I was going to enjoy, but I don't want to use this one. This one's too clean. Let's use one that's been abused. I think it sounds like those German tanks in Battle of the Bulge. Oil that thing. Now we're here earlier than normal. It's good. I basically skipped my breakfast. I was going to go out and get some coffee. I'm like, no, I'll just deal with the little bit that we have here. Because I just didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like putting my contacts in and driving and so forth. Okay. So here we have the two Panzer 4Ds that we went ahead and sprayed. We ended up spraying these yesterday with the Vallejo surface primer. Which honestly, I don't know how much longer I'm going to use it because it's a damn fight with the airbrush every single time. At least it cleans up okay, or at least it seems like it cleans up okay, but it is just a damn fight every time with it. Not the airbrush, just that stuff, this stuff right here. Maybe I'll try using just AK black paint and see how that works. Get me some AK black paint that runs through the airbrush just fine. It took me 30 minutes getting it going again. Yeah, just one of those things. It's better than hand painting it, so. The part that I was excited about finding was the radio, which honestly, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and set these to the side. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one if I can. Yep. And we'll glue them later. It's just going to be both fighting with them, whatever. But this is the Armor Fast Panzer 4Ds that I finished the other day. And I'm excited to see what they look like painted up. So that, and we also got the SU-152 animal killer. We went ahead and primed that one as well, so we can do that as well. So that's what we're going to do this morning, because this takes a little bit of time to get that happening. And let's get the German gray out, I believe is what they call. Let me find it first. And then we'll have to do The hell's black doing over there? And then we'll have to do the wash, and we'll let that sit. So let's see where the German gray is hanging out at. No, this is German World War II Luftwaffe blue. We'll need that one next. Like, I don't have a lot of grays here. Like, what happened? German gray, here we go. So what I do is I prime black. This is kind of my own thing, what I do. I prime everything black. And I dry brush this color on. I dry brush the main color on. Then I give it a brown wash. Then I dry brush this color back on. Then I add the Luftwaffe blue a little bit to this. Then more Luftwaffe blue. Then start adding sand to do the highlights. And then it's done other than the weathering. The weathering is the colors that come in the base thing. That's how I do it. If you do it a different way, that's cool. But I like how it turns out. It turns out looking like this. Has a little bit of a blue tint to it. And it looks faded. Let me look at the screen and see if that's representative. Yeah, it looks a little bit more light blue in the screen than it does to me. But it looks how I want it to look. I'm happy with it. I'm also happy with how my tracks turn out. I actually don't have any metallic showing on tracks normally. Sure, I finally showed and no one else does. I know, it's weird. Oh, and you said that and somebody else showed up. Good morning, Kevin. Good Lord, it's early where you're at. Yeah, good for you. Sleeping's a waste of time. We have to do it, but it's a waste of time. So I've been really happy with how these have turned out, the Panzer Gray. One of my concerns about going back to doing vehicles was I wasn't really sure of, I was going to be happy how things turned out, and we're way past that. So I'm very happy with how my vehicles turn out. And if I see somebody's vehicles that I like more than mine, then, you know, I'm always looking to improve, but it's up to the creator, meaning somebody else might think your stuff needs improvement and you don't, so it doesn't really matter what somebody else thinks. I actually saw a comment. One of the first things I do when I wake up in the morning is I look at comments on previous videos. I try to do that every morning. I do it throughout the day, but I don't get a notification of it. I almost have to go and find it. And there's one guy was asking, what, no more DBA videos? I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing any more. Not only am I not doing more DBA videos, I will not play DBA again. I won't. Unlike politicians, folks, I'm actually true to my word. I quit smoking the first serious attempt I ever did. So I'm not perfect at everything, but I don't like to say I'm going to do A and then do B. So I will not play DBA again. Sorry. 2,500 plus games and 18 years of dedication is enough. And there's a multiple of reasons why I won't do it. I don't really want to make the video on why I won't want to do it. I don't want it to be a negative video of like, oh, you're just, no, I don't really have any, I don't have bad memories of it. I'm just ready to move something. I shouldn't say that. I don't have bad memories. I don't know. No, I can't make it better. The game needs to be improved in certain areas. I am not the person to do it. I could do it, but I don't want to be drained. Work is too fucking busy, and it gets worse every day. So, what if they come out with 4.0? Probably not going to do it. Not if it's written abstractly. I'm just not going to play abstract stuff anymore. My brain doesn't work that way. And I hate reading things over and over again and feeling like I'm stupid. And I'm not. The way it's written is it's just anti the opposite of, of how I would write things, how I played any game before that. No, I'm just not going to do it. I'm not getting rid of my armies. I'm not painting 15 millimeter for now. I'm actually not playing with the guys. I'm until it was 115 feel like degrees yesterday, this week, and let's get some of this off so we can. Although this is a pretty heavy dry brush coat, I am not going to go play in a freaking sweatshop until the weather cools down. I don't need to game that badly. And you know the thing is that I'm in this damn weather every day for work. So the last thing I want to do when I'm not at work is be back in it. And the place is not properly air conditioned, and it's not worth it. So when I go in game, I give up doing this, which is what do you call it? Stress reducing, not creating more. So I don't need to game that badly to have to put up with shit. And the people are great, but you know, it's same thing, you know. I stopped running DBA tournaments not because the people that showed up were great, which they were. The people that showed up weren't an issue. It was everybody that didn't show up and all the stuff that I had to do. And I basically put my life on hold for well over a decade, my gaming life on hold for this game, which I enjoyed. But a lot of people were like, "Oh, I'll be there," and then they're not there, and I got burned out with it. That was one of them. What was one of the main reasons? You know, people that would say, "Hey, I'm in your area. I want to learn how to play DBA," and they watch videos, and I'll come to the next show, and they just didn't year after year after year after year. And it's like, look, if I can make all this stuff and you can't show up, and it's not one person, it's probably at least 6 or 7. Just got burned out with it, and that on top of the writing style, which after 2,500 games, I still would encounter things that didn't make any sense to anybody, any of us playing. It's just time to move on. It's just time to move on. I'm going to play something that I'm going to work things for a game that if somebody shows up, that's cool. If they don't show up, that's cool too. Gaming with this stuff isn't really a priority. I'm just kind of building these as models that could potentially show up in a game one time. And I kind of make my own schedule and what works for me. So, work is way too busy, no end in sight. We're experienced AC users here. Yeah. I am too, but apparently I game with people who have a problem with it. You know, we game in a shed that has no insulation. And I'm really close to just not going there again. I'm tired of the environment. So it's got nothing to do with the people. I'm just tired of the environment. I don't need to game that badly. You know, I'm perfectly happy doing this, and then when I need to get a game in, I'll play Diablo with a family or something else, you know? WRG2 was too realistic. Yeah, I will say this. I will never play an Ancients game where you have to line up perfectly again. I won't fucking do it. I'm not doing it again. It's stupid. It feels fake. It's irrational. You know, we were working on some things to make, to fix those things in DBA. Just my heart's just not in it. You know, I just my heart's just not in it to put games out get people to not show, you still have the people not showing up. If I was still painting that stuff, I would have had 2 armies done maybe since then. Instead, I have 100 freaking vehicles. Yeah, I'm having a hell of a lot more fun doing this. You know, it's not like I'm gonna take my videos down, but unlike everybody else in the world that says one thing and does something different, I'm true to my word. I will not play it again. It's not worth my time. I require much more detail, and you're at work and they're always like coming up with shit like, oh, this went wrong. Well, we have to come up with a policy of keeping this from happening again. Okay, well, if you take that kind of mindset with DBA, and you encounter something that doesn't work in the game, or DBA or any game really, and you encounter something that doesn't work in the game, if you don't change it to keep that shit from happening, that's some frustrating crap. So, you can't really do that in a tournament environment, because then you're changing things at the last minute and nobody knows the changes that you're making. Even though I have played tournaments with other games where they did do that on the fly, and it pissed me off. Especially when you traveled a long way to be there. But, yeah, I'm just not willing to do that anymore. I have a set of rules that I want to use for this. I used to play them. I haven't played them a lot. I mean, I played them maybe 4 occasions. And it's only because the game's lasted a lot longer than a DBA game does. But if I find loopholes, they'll be changed. The rules are out of print anyway. What are you going to do? Go out and buy them? It's not like I'm going to run this in a tournament or anything. And it's not like I'm going to run this at a convention. So, you don't just get to show up and poo-poo on my game, You won't even know I'm playing it. Just a different mindset that I've realized has got to happen if I'm going to continue doing this hobby, and it's from years of issues coming up. So, prizes. I'm not going to give little awards anymore for anything I do. Is I got really, one of them disappeared. I killed myself. Freaking killed myself meaning I didn't want to freaking do it. At the last show. The show before last, I'm sorry, that we had, the last one that I ran things at, one of the awards disappeared. So I did all this stuff. I couldn't do what I wanted to do last week, putting these awards, and somebody walked off with an award. Well, fuck you, no more awards. And I don't think it's any of the people that play, the 6 or 7 or people that showed up to play. Occasionally watch one of your old videos. At this point, you never played my Sarmatians. Well, you already knew how it was going to turn out. Bunch of light horse running around. I don't know. I have impetus. I may give that a try. Just my heart's just not in it right now. It may be a while. And unlike apparently a lot of people, I hate chaos. I hate the fact that we're going to play and we don't know who's going to show up. Even until the last minute, that there's changes. And I have too many changes in my work life. So anything that is remotely like work, when I'm not at work, I am vehemently opposed to. Good morning. Good morning, Barnes. I like our old videos. We tried to do them the best that we could within reason. And they still fall short with, getting shit wrong. It's just, that's unsatisfactory. I can't do that anymore. And I'm putting a lot of effort in painting these things a certain way, and the game doesn't reward you. Oh, like, all blades are the same. That's stupid. I'm not doing that anymore. But really, the dumbest thing was, that whole perfect alignment. You got to fight guys like this. You can't be over a little bit. I'm not trying to do something freaking hokey. It's just that, you hit guys like this, it's impossible to explain to people. I'm not going to do it anymore. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and they say that all the rage, the game that's all the rage, and it's all the rage here at Historicon as well, or it was last year. Who knows what's going on this year? I'm not going. I'm not going next week. And was Art de la Guerre. And I was going to buy the rules. And somebody gave me a pirated copy of the rules, or gave me a download. And I'm glad they did, because I'm never spending a dime on that set of rules. It is totally a ripoff of Phil Barker's work. I have utmost respect for Phil, even though I don't like his writing style. It's not his writing style. Let's call it his organization style. The fact that he won't repeat anything a second time or put it in every section where it might apply to. I have the utmost respect for that man. And when you play a set of rules and it has something special that looks like it's completely lifted from one of somebody else's set of rules, and the guy isn't given any credit for it, and they charge for it, it just seems fucking dirty. It just seems fucking dirty. Now, if you enjoy playing Art de la Guerre, that doesn't bother you, I don't have a problem with it. I'm talking about the guy who wrote it. Like, that's just... And I don't think he should be sued, because only attorneys freaking win in suits. And, they don't need any more power over the rest of us as far as I'm concerned. But it's just wrong. Do you see it? 15mm hit type fortification. You already showed photo. Yeah, it looks beautiful, doesn't it? Absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah, he did a great job with that. So, Art de la Guerre has this thing, like DBMM, where you have these special generals or whatever. You can have good generals, you can have shitty generals. Let's just talk about the good generals. And sometimes there's guys in there that people almost universally agree, why the hell did Phil Barker put this guy in there? Because it's just a weird choice for somebody to be a brilliant general. That's what it is, brilliant general. And the example I like to use is Prince John Lackland, who's notoriously as brilliant as General Paulus at Stalingrad. Probably even less so. But yet he's a brilliant general because he did some special, some battle against somebody one time. And pretty much everybody universally agrees, why the hell did this guy get included? Art de la Guerre has the same thing, has the same people, including that motherfucker. It's just dirty, man. It's just dirty. I wouldn't play it just on that. That, and it still has the whole perfect conforming thing to the front. I wouldn't play it. But if you enjoy it, enjoy it. If your local people play that, you probably have to play that to get a game in. But I'm not going to start playing that based on that parameter alone. It just seems dirty. They charged for his rules. They took his work, charged for his rule, gave him zero credit. Took me ages to find a seller. Only way to get one was to buy a DBA Hittite Army 30. Oh, I didn't know it was for sale. I thought it was something he may have picked up on his travels. Because he does do that. And I do that as well. I go somewhere, like let's say I go to Greece. I don't know what it's like going to Europe. It seems like there's like a curse that I don't get to go, but we'll see if it happens this year. I'd go into stores and see, what can I use for a camp? I'm normally used to do that. Mr. Panzers, welcome. Just uploading the latest tutorial. Notice that you were streaming. Just thought to say hello quickly. Glad to see you painting some Germans this time around. I paint everybody. There's a guy on one of the feeds that I do, and he's a very good painter. and he is on a tear, painting German this, German that, German the other thing, German thing. And I mean, the Germans are cool, but they have to fight somebody. I actually enjoy painting the Soviets the most. Why? Because everybody thinks they're boring, and they are if you let yourself do that. I want to finish these Panzer 4Ds because these are kind of models, and I added a bunch of extra bits, and I'm really happy how they turned out, and we will see if we can finish these up. But this is my first coat, which is the German gray dry brush. We'll let this set a little bit, and then we will go and do a wash of strong tone, which has replaced my Agrax Earthshade because it's more affordable and less sticky. And did I mention more affordable? Agrax did this thing like, oh, this is a great product, and it cost, I don't know, $8. No, it was $6. And then they made it a third smaller and went up in price. It's like, why do you do stuff like that? Why do you do things like that? British for me. Love me some British. That's because you're British. The funny thing is oh man, my paper towels are gone. Well, that'll have to wait then. Because I'm not ready to leave right this second. Well, we'll use this. I generally do not like playing Americans. I'm already American. I don't get to do funny accents or anything. I don't do American Civil War, so playing the South doesn't count as one of them. I don't like American history. It's not exciting enough. I like playing British, but if I play British, you guys are going to be annoyed because I like doing that fake over-the-top British accent. Don't worry, I do it better than most people in this country. That doesn't mean anything, but I do accents for other countries I'm playing, and no disrespect is intended. Well, I don't even have to apologize. You guys know that. People that know me know that I do that shit all the time. I've always done it. Doesn't matter what I'm playing, Japanese or Russian green. That's what we're going to do with this guy. So we're going to dry brush this guy in Russian green, and when this one's drying, when we're done with that, we can go back and give the wash to the Krautskis. Krautsky. That's what you should call an Su-76I. It's an ex-German vehicle modified to Russian standards. A Krautsky. Red copper miniatures 3D printed. I do TOG. I am dying to do British in the Desert. I'm absolutely dying to do them, but the cards aren't falling into place. I'm not excited to do Africa Corps, believe it or not. I want to do the British in the Desert. I want to do the counter scheme vehicle correctly. I want me some A-13 Mark IV cruisers. I just haven't found them yet. And the 3D printing gods are against me because I've seen 3D printed stuff I like. The shipping is just horrendously expensive for us here in the States. And every single thing I want is always made in the United Kingdom. And I have nothing against that. I've always bought it. It's the land of toys, as I like to call it. But the shipping is just brutal. The shipping is brutal. We're going to get another little one of these. And I reuse these things. It's just a nice little palette to add something to. You've been to America a lot of times. Now most people do a decent British accent. Not so much Australian. Yeah. PSC's 20% sale in a moment in case anyone missed it. Yeah. The problem with the Desert Brits is it's difficult to find. People need to get on the ball and make a decent Matilda too. And then, I'm not a Matilda expert, but the S model stuff, where you get 2 kits for 1, are excellent. And they make 2 Matildas. They make a close support Matilda, and they make a standard one, but apparently they're for the Russian army, and somehow they're not usable for the desert. I don't know whether they just don't have the little smoke generators that are on the port side of the turret, or there's more to it than that. But I would have picked those guys up already had that been the case. But I'll get there eventually. And the main thing is I want to do the desert basing on the vehicles because I really like how my desert basing turns out. I'm really happy with that. It's got to look good with the vehicle, but I don't have any infantry for it yet. But I've always liked the Desert War. It's always seems pretty cool. We know how to say cricky. All right, just some good old Russian green here. And this is a lot quicker than trying to spray everything green. And it leaves some black in areas that are hard to reach anyways. I just like this method. And I do have an airbrush, but I'm not an airbrusher. I still have confidence in, a lot more confidence doing traditional painting. And maybe at some point I'll do an airbrushing video for idiots. You know, I think I've got some stuff that I've learned over the months that I've been doing it. And much better than some other how to start airbrushing videos. There's some really wrong stuff on there. But I don't think it's ever going to take over my hand painting stuff. I got too many decades doing this. This stuff's just too natural for me. This is the trumpeter model of the SU-152 Animal Killer. It's the first trumpeter model I built, and I'm really happy with them. You know, so let me tell you a little bit about the Chinese. They make a lot of crap, but some of their models are some of the best. So, just like anything else, if you put your mind to it, you can make good stuff. The trumpeter stuff, other than, my only gripe with them is, why not give us an option to make the vehicle hatches open? At least one. I have two trumpeter models. Both of them have the vehicle sealed shut. The hatch is sealed shut, which isn't a huge deal because if I had two of the same vehicle, I'd make some of them. I wouldn't make them all open. I just like doing it occasionally because it shows for the scale of the figure on there. But this thing in particular has like freaking 7 options for decals. So it's like out of control in the decal department. But I'm a fan. They went together really well. S Model, the other Chinese manufacturer that I have, some excellent models. I have some Panzer IIs. They came with a brass turned barrel for the 20mm cannon. Just beautiful kits. Went together really well. Very similar plastic to the Plastic Soldier Company plastic, which is one of my favorite ones. And you're like, well, what difference does the plastic make? Well, it does when you're trying to cut it off of sprues and stuff. If it's too brittle, you feel like you're walking on eggshells, or maybe you're painting eggshells. So yeah, I am a fan of the S Model. However, S Model doesn't, I got some decals with Panzer IIs, and they didn't, instead of the yellow decals, they ended up being orange. So, nobody's perfect. If you look at reviews of all these model kits, there's always something like, oh, well, this thing's wrong on this one, and this one's a little too thick, or this one's too, they're wargaming models. They just have to kind of give the impression of what it is. I have some vehicles that are 1/72nd scale and one that are 1/76th, and I already have them, and my preference is 1/72nd because they scale better with the oversized figures anyways than 1/76. But if 1/76 is what we have, then that's what we have. You've seen airbrush by testers Just use compressed air can instead of compressor and you just screw paint bottle on. Oh no. That's a disaster waiting to happen. You know, I've got the whole reason I do, well, I do this for a couple of reasons. I do this to keep myself entertained, but there's some stuff I've learned along the years that I want to pass down to people. If people are willing to listen, I don't need to convert anybody, you know. Like, oh, I don't like using Vallejo paint. Okay, don't, you know. Actually, I like AK paint the best for spray. I like Vallejo the best for this. But for spray, man, AK stuff's amazing. You don't have to thin it. You know, you don't have to thin it with my airbrush. With my airbrush settings, that's another thing. People are like, oh, you got to figure out what your airbrush settings are. Yeah, everything's different. So, but there's some stuff that I learned, and you know, there's videos on everything, and people say one thing and do some, you know, but there's no point in spending money on an airbrush and it creating more conflict for you than it solves. You just threw money at a problem and you made it worse. So I would not suggest anybody to buy a cheap airbrush. You're better off just don't even buy one. And you don't have to spend $300 on one either. So the one I got was like 150 bucks or something like that. It's like you spend about 300 bucks on the compressor and the airbrush. And you're gonna, it's not gonna go super smooth, but you're not gonna have to fight with it as much. It's not that bad. It's actually actually works really well if you use the right paint. That's why I don't want to use this surface primer anymore for airbrushing. It's the wrong paint to airbrush with. The stuff's amazing, but it's not really made for this application. It's like trying to put house paint, latex house paint through an airbrush. It's just too thick. Now with the AK, flawless. Now it's just one of those things. You know, I've made the most progress airbrushing the one day I spent all day doing it. I ended up priming like 40 vehicles a couple months ago, and I learned a lot doing the 40 vehicles in a row. How many times I had to unclog the airbrush. So these guys, the debut of these guys was at Kursk, and they were apparently only about 20 of them there. But they were in the south part of the engagement, the south salient. Unless the write-up was wrong. I saw it recently. I have a couple of Panthers, a couple of Panther Ds that I got that I'm going to paint them at some point for Kursk. And I did a deep dive into them yesterday. And I'm probably going to do it on video as I figure it out, because it's really, really interesting. And there's one guy that did a superb job on his website, kind of describing the markings of the Panther Ds at Kursk. That's the main thing. If other people have done work, man, you got to give them credit for it. Now I was famous in school for writing papers and like, you didn't give proper citation. Yeah, because I don't give a shit about what I'm writing about. Okay, this is just for an assignment. But in real life, if somebody does something really cool, you know, you got to give them credit for what they did. You know, just it's an honor code. It is for me, anyways. And this guy did an excellent job on the paint schemes of the Panther Ds at Kursk. And I'm going to build a couple of them. I got the kits for it. So my dry brushing method basically means that it's going to pop at a distance. The fact that I can't see that worth a damn, or I'm nearsighted as hell, take your pick, means that it's going to look good up close because I see all the mistakes. So I've been really happy with how they have the look I want them to have. So that's ultimately the important thing is you need to make yourself happy with what it is that you're doing. Can't please other people. Everybody has their own method of doing it. I am not a fan of using powders. I'm not a fan of light colors sticking in crevices. I understand it's realistic. I also know that at a distance it's going to look like a blur. So when I do dusting, any of these light dusting colors aren't stuck in any of the crevices that I went through a lot of effort to make them stand out. So I kind of I want my stuff to look kind of like a graphic novel. I don't want them to look like a comic book. They do need to look realistic, but they also are, it's just a style that it matches my figures and I'm really happy with. Okay, so Zverboy is done. All right, I need to get the paper towels, which should have been here. Be right back. All right. Yeah, I like painting German stuff as much as anybody else, but they got to fight somebody, you know. And the Soviet stuff's really cool, you know. Okay, so they painted their stuff in all gray. Okay, well the German, I mean all green. That's fine. That's the one we used for the gray, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. I'm gonna do aircraft at some point. Not necessarily for the game, just to do them. The problem, aircraft have a huge problem for me. You have this cogitation of, do you put the landing gear down or do you put the landing gear up? Well, if you just stick to things like float planes, Stukas, Nates, you know, things that have a fixed landing gear, you don't have that problem. I think that the planes look better with the landing gear up, but then you can't put them somewhere, you know? Think about getting a few pigment powders or lighter colored mortar for buildings. What did I do? I think I just painted it in. Yeah, that's tough. And I'll finish my Normandy building at some point. My heart's not in it right now. And it's actually turning out a lot better than I thought it was. I thought it was going to. Yeah, this thing. It's just sitting off to the side. It'll end up looking okay. I'll be happy with it. There's just a lot more. There's probably, I don't know, 10 more hours of tinkering with it, probably. So. Okay, Boy goes off to the side. And it's relatively dark. Yeah, the colors you guys are seeing are totally different than what I see. That's a very, very deep green, almost like the color of my shirt there, and that doesn't look like that. Okay. We need to give these guys a wash of the Agrax. Do you already have a brush that we did washings on? Normally I use the white one so it stands out a little bit more. Yeah, this one right here. I don't even fool around with this shit. I just apply it directly on the tank and move it around. Now, hopefully, it's dried enough because I don't want to pick any of this stuff off. So we'll see how that works. Even give you a mixing ball in there. And I'm not a fan of Army Painter paint, but this wash stuff works pretty well. I'm not a fan of their paint because it just behaves differently than what I'm used to. I'm going really light. I don't want to pick any of this stuff off. And I'm not looking for ways of making my painting system take even longer, because there are ways to do it that take longer. Like give it a coat of gloss and no. I take long enough as it is. And this is going to get dry brush on top of it anyways, the same color. We're going to go back over it. And it's slightly brownish. But I really enjoy doing this because it's not like, well, I got to finish painting these Crusader Knights or whatever it is. I have to work on something that's for a game that may not be what I feel like waking up to. So, we're working on the same damn thing for 6 months. And if some of this stuff does get wiped off, some of the original gray paint, it's probably not that big of a deal because the next step is to go back over with the same paint anyways. So. Okay, I think we're good. Let's do the whole, the other one. And we'll do Nuln Oil and super dark stuff in certain areas that where it needs it as well. This is just the overall one. And we do that after, towards the end of the process. But this, I think this material, this strong tone behaves better than the Agrax Earthshade. It gives it an equivalent color. This is probably a little bit more black. The Agrax Earthshade is a little bit more brown. So maybe I like the Agrax Earthshade a little bit more. I just don't like their pricing, how they changed it, and their material gets really, really sticky really, really fast. But that's typical Games Workshop for me. I don't dislike Games Workshop. They make a good product, and then all of a sudden they changed it, and they changed their pricing, and neither one of the two are for the better. And then I just go like, well, I find other alternatives. It's mainly because their product gets changed. You know, it's just like when you go out to a restaurant. Okay, things now are a lot more expensive than they were 4 years ago. That's fine. I mean, it's not fine, but it is what it is. But the fact that you're paying 25 to 30% more and it's shittier is unacceptable. That's just absolutely unacceptable in my book. I don't care what your reasoning is. I'm not going to pay more and it's crappier. That's counterintuitive. We're working hard on your slot cars. Got a match next Saturday. Yeah, I don't know if you convert anybody, but maybe I'll put something on there that helps you guys. You know, I say things like it is. You know, sometimes it's, you know, you make a bad product, it's a bad product. People need to know about it. You know, that Pegasus unboxing that I did of that King Tiger, that thing's a piece of shit. You know, are all Pegasus kits bad? No, it's just that one. For whatever reason, it was the first iteration of it. You guys should know. I'm not trying to bash anybody. You don't want me to bash you? Stop making crap. You know, you need to stop bashing our product. Stop making garbage, especially when you have products that are okay. So I could never be sponsored by anybody. Well, I got to sing the praises of this, even though it's a piece of crap. That's just some dishonorable shit. I'm a great salesman if I believe in your product, but you know, you got to keep your quality control up. You can't just sit on their laurels and. All right, we've got. We'll let that thing sit. Try to get it kind of level if possible. Keep it from being all wonkish. I don't know if what I give is advice, insight. Probably more advice. Almost sounds like you need to do what I'm doing. I don't care what people do. Likewise, I don't care what people tell me to do either. It goes both ways. Now, there's some things I find along the way. I don't need to keep it to myself. You know, I know people in the gaming thing that are like, they find tricks of how to do something. They don't want to tell anybody so they can pull it on somebody at a tournament. Like, that's just not me. I want to let people know so I'm more challenged so I get even better. But the best discovery I've ever made is the freaking hand sanitizer. And maybe somebody else knew about it. I never saw anybody report on it. As far as I'm concerned, that was my invention. I'm sure somebody else knew about it. There's just too many people around doing that. But you know, like these washes, okay? They're a pain in the butt, right? They're on your hands. Right? Well, we still have to do this Verboy. You know, this stuff doesn't come off easy with even brushing it hard. Just a little bit of hand sanitizer, boom, gone. Eliminated. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. All right, you got to make sure they're dry before you handle something with paint, or you could damage it. We're done with that one. Let's put that down here. All right, that's going to dry. This stuff dries a little bit faster than Agrax. We probably will not be able to mess with this morning, knowing how that is, but okay, it's Verboy time. Yeah, this thing has a lot of decal options. But it was really weird building that King Tiger and the Yag Tiger. Actually, Yag Tiger's technically not finished. I need to put the tracks together. It's just really weird painting these Third Reich wet dreams. Let's put it that way. Let's call them that. It just I felt dirty doing it. I don't know, just something about it. I've never done really late war stuff, and it's just, it seemed like I was playing building your own tank force for force, and I was painting like SS or something like that. I don't know. It's just really weird. I've never done really late war stuff like that. The conflict's a little too one-sided by that point, but ultimately, for what I'm using them for skirmish, it doesn't really matter. But it was just a weird feeling. Actually, probably never felt that before, ever doing World War II stuff. Just building these Wehrmacht wet dreams. I claim as my invention, the drink people give credit to Arnold Palmer. Okay, fair enough. He's too busy hitting things with hitting his balls, banging his balls and stuff. That's a good drink you invented there. You know, if you've never heard of something and you're the first one to come up with it for yourself, and then somebody else actually, you know, you're your own inventor for it. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's not like you're going to make any more money. I get it. Wehrmacht wet dreams. You didn't think you were going to hear that today. Never know what you're going to... There's a lot of that. I can't believe that there's any popularity in people playing like Wehrmacht 1947 or shit like that. Like, it's a miracle the Germans lasted as long as they did, with as incompetent as they were, supply and stuff. And (1947) Wehrmacht shit. Just doesn't interest me. Lots of things about World War II that are pretty amazing. That are pretty unbelievable. It's unbelievable that the Soviets got caught with their pants down as bad as they did. It's amazing that they moved all their factories out like they did. That's probably one thing that doesn't get enough credit. They wouldn't have packed up their factories. I think we got this guy everywhere we need him to. What's the difference? That's the other thing. If you're doing late 44, 45 stuff, I mean, the Germans were always bad. But they were really bad at the late in the war. It's just desperation and stuff, you know. I don't like SS stuff anyways. I just don't, you know. There's one thing to do war crimes. There's another thing to do, you know, a war of annihilation. And by that point, it's never interested me. And I like my German tanks gray. I just do. Looks better with the uniforms. Oh, missed a spot. Okay, so at this point, we can't do anything with this. Oh, we got some nice pooling going on. Oh no, tank turret. You stay straight up. Stay erect. There we go. Mr. Ben, welcome. Welcome to the Wehrmacht Wet Dream. All right, let's go back to putting together. This needs to settle a little bit. I never thought about that stuff before. Never thought about that stuff before. And I'm a person that, like, when we build kits, I'm like, what do you mean a kit doesn't come with a swastika? It was on the plane. You know? I wouldn't build a Stuka and not put a swastika on the tail. I know they're rat bastards, but that's what the plane had. But at the same time, man, I don't know about building 30 German kits in a row. So we're gonna do this little guy. I don't know where we're gonna go next. Well, I gotta do stuff that I've already done an unboxing on. So we got a cute Hetzer also to do, which honestly is the same footprint as this. And I want to do those weird T26s. Those weird T26s that have a million parts. I'm looking forward to doing those. Let's get these guys back on here. Let's put that abortion of the King Tiger away. This antenna that I'm terrified of. Taking off the sprue. I'm sure I'll figure it out. Where's the instructions for it? Oh, that's right, on the stupid box. So, mid-game review of this Polish company's First to Fight stuff. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan because the instructions are poor. The instructions are really poor. They feel like S model a lot in the feel of the plastic, but I don't know. You guys could do better than. You guys could do better than that. Anyhow, we got some armor plates and stuff. I have to sit this thing off to the side. It's massive. Was it Finland used a swastika as well? Yes, and I don't understand why they did. It wasn't because of they weren't fighting a war of racial annihilation. I don't think. The war of racial annihilation is extremely stupid as an outsider on so many levels. And one of the dumbest one is, in my opinion, is the war against the Russians, because the freaking Russians and the Germans are the freaking same. I don't know. It's hard to look at things from a racist when you aren't one. Now, that's one of the things that is as a kid studying about the Eastern Front, I was always a fan of it. I mean, obviously, I'm not a fan of conflict, but it'd be as far as that particular conflict, because it was, which bad guy do you want to be? But I always thought of the Germans as basically being like, their whole World War II thing. As a kid, I'm like, well, they're just trying to get back for not getting screwed out of the first one. And I'm not really interested in the political stuff. I'm not interested in modern day politics. I'm not interested in that kind of stuff to begin with. But as you read more about her, I found out things along the way. Yeah, we're looking at it as a payback scenario, and it's like a war of annihilation. They want to basically eliminate everybody that's in the Ukraine and use it for space for them to live in. And I haven't read Mein Kampf, and I have no interest in reading Mein Kampf. I don't give a shit what mustachioed short people say. R7 and R3, these two guys right here. But, I remember when I was a kid, and even talking about it with my dad, is like, all they had to do is just come as liberators. But that's not what they were there for. They did not invade Russia to be good guys or to be better guys. They invaded Russia to eliminate the people that were in their way. And that doesn't make any sense. And maybe that's why it doesn't make any sense to us. Why would you do that? And especially doesn't make any sense to do it while you're fighting the current war. Let's say you don't like the people that are in the Ukraine. Or Belarusia, whoever it is. Can you fight the Soviets first and eliminate them before you start fighting everybody at once? It's just, they're going in for reasons that don't make any sense. But thinking logically wasn't one of their strong suits. I'm going to go ahead and take the front plate off as well. Now, say you don't like a group of people. Let's say you really don't like a group of people where you want to send them to a camp. Okay? I don't agree with that on any level. But let's say you don't like a group of people. Why waste resources where you have to send them somewhere and guard them and then, execute them when you could just send them to the Eastern Front armed? It just doesn't make any sense. None of it makes any sense. Like I said, that's not really my interest in World War II. Isn't the political stuff or the stuff that goes behind the scenes or even the logistics stuff, which is very important. It's one of the reasons that the Germans lost the war. Probably one of the biggest reasons they lost the war was the supply, and there's lots of reasons why they did. I don't agree with, I've seen a lot of things recently where they're like, there's no way the Germans could have won. And I disagree with that. I don't think it would have been easy, but because the Germans were really incompetent. When I mean Germans, I mean the higher level Nazis and stuff like that. There's lots of incompetent stuff that they did because it was a good old boy system, and he left somebody in charge of supply who was just ultimately was really incompetent and just gave the answers the people above him wanted to hear, and they never canned him. Or if they canned him, it was too late. The supply problems they had in 1941 on the Eastern Front, the guy that was in charge of it was an ultimate yes man who didn't get canned or replaced by somebody who was more competent. Thankfully, he didn't. But it's stuff that I've never really looked into it because it doesn't really interest me. I'm interested in Okay, what unit was there? What tanks were there? What was the numbering system? How were they painted? Stuff that evolves around the tactical level stuff, not strategic and certainly not political crap. This idea that we have that we call things, like people have this saying, they say that I'm a detail Nazi or whatever. The Nazis were not about that. They weren't, and sometimes they were and sometimes they weren't. But intelligence failures, the Germans had massive intelligence failures. And I'm not just talking about Enigma, as they dealt with it, at least a little bit that I've read, Enigma caused them less damage than the World War One fiasco they had. They really knew what the hell they were doing in World War One. But just about other stuff. So Czech 38 stuff you may not know. It was originally a one-man turret, and the Germans turned it into a two-man turret. It's a very small vehicle, but I think it was one of the more reliable German vehicles that they had. Although technically it's not a German vehicle, but Nazis had very poor understanding of other people. They thought Eastern European Slavs were destructive. Yeah, if you're an extreme racist and you belittle the people that you're trying to conquer, you're underestimating their capabilities all the time, which, is really difficult to deal with if you're trying to, win a war against them. Yeah, I don't understand the war against the Slavs. Maybe if they were like, we're going to go to Russia because we don't like the Mongoloid-looking Russians. Okay, but the regular Russians? I'm not saying there's anything right with that. I'm just saying that at least they look different. The regular-looking Russians? They're the same, man. They're the same people. They're the same white people. For thousands of years, we've all, gone back and forth over that same land. It doesn't make any sense to somebody that's logical, but, they don't think of things logically. Oh, this is the wrong one. We need a thinner sandpaper than that. Let's move. Japanese thought we belittled them. Well, they belittle everybody. There's sorry people of every nationality, and there's good people of every nationality. Never built a Japanese plane. Maybe have to do that. The Pacific War to me, though, seems like another war. It really does. It's just so vastly different than the First World War or the Second World War. It just seems like a totally different in Europe or in Russia. And it's never captivated me. It never captivated me as a kid. It didn't captivate my dad either. I've said this before. We're affected by our fathers. Even if you never met them, which is not the case in my situation, but so I'm not one of those people that I don't think that the Germans could have won. It depends what you consider winning is. If they could neutralize the Soviets, it's a problem. It's a big issue, One of the things I was watching a video on the King Tiger, even though I felt dirty watching it, um, from the folks at the Tank Museum that I didn't know about. They said a couple things I didn't know about it. I don't. I'm not an expert on the King Tiger. No reason why I should be. This is the first one I ever built. They said not a single one was ever knocked out by a hit to the front, which I find very surprising, especially considering the Eastern Front scenario. They definitely had, the Soviets definitely had weapons that could knock them out to the front. I'm surprised that they didn't. But the other thing that they said is they manufactured just shy of 500 of them, even though their factory was wrecked. And surprised how many more they might have made if their factory wasn't wrecked. But maybe it was just raw materials. There's all kinds of rare materials that are in these tanks. Like, I'm just gonna say tungsten. I don't know what there's tungsten, but there's a, tungsten's part of some of those special rounds the Germans have. But just weird minerals that they don't necessarily have access to, that may have affected how many of them they might have made as well. Ooh, we got to be ever so careful here. There we go. Read some books on World War One that were fascinating. Yeah, the thing about World War One that doesn't make it more interesting than it is the whole trench warfare thing. The trench warfare thing is just like extremely not something I want to read about. I've read several books on the naval aspect of it, and I think it's pretty interesting. And I'm not just talking about Jutland, I'm talking about the other stuff that isn't Jutland. So I don't think that the Germans couldn't have won, but what's the win look like? The win doesn't look like they take over the United States. Their win looks like, okay, we just have to accept that these people are over there and they have that part of the world under their thumb, you know. But what's it look like when the Germans don't launch Barbarossa and they fight the British to a stalemate, and the British just kind of like, all right, well we'll keep our shit and you leave us alone. And then the Soviets decide to attack the Germans. What's that look like in 42 or 43? What's that look like? You know? Do the Russians just get their ass beat because they don't learn anything? Like, here's a small scenario that I don't know that I've heard anybody ever think about. Let's say everything stays the same in World War II, except for one thing. The Soviets never attack Finland. So they never get to learn the lessons from Finland. How much of an effect does that have? I feel like it had a lot. I feel like the Soviets learned a lot of stuff in that short war against Finland that would have just made them get their pants caught even further down when the Germans came. But the reality about it is the Germans got really, really lucky doing as well as they did, how they did it. And a lot of folks got really unlucky as well. So a lot of things went their way that made it seem like, Hitler was some kind of like a genius or something like that. Don't get bogged down in the trenches. There's a lot more to World War II than the trenches and naval. Yeah, but is there a lot of stuff that interests me? Like You know, I can't be interested in everything. I don't care about the Middle East and World War One at all. I just don't. I'm so that's my Pacific. That's my World War Two Pacific. It just doesn't interest me. And that's, you know, that's not a big deal because you could take a conflict like the American Civil War, and I don't give a shit about any of it anywhere. Um, if I did World War One, I did World War One skirmish, I would do 1914 before the trenches set in. But I actually wouldn't do it because pretty much on the tactical level, everybody's squad is pretty close. You know, there's not any weapons that are that much different from. Oh, really? To from one nation to the next. There we go. That goes inside the other one. I can't be into everything, so you know. Just like I saw somebody post on a DBA group or something like that about they couldn't get into book four. They couldn't get into book four armies. They had World Book One armies picked, book two, three, but they couldn't get into book four. And I'm like, how can you not get into book four? But you know, different things appeal to different people. I can't get into book one. I'm not interested in it. You know, everybody kind of looks the same ish. Now I did one book one army, and I'm very proud of how they turned out, and I like how they look, but they're not very exciting. Oh, this is just counterintuitively weird. All right. Not that I have to do these in a certain order. And we're just waiting for the Panzer stuff to dry. The colors to dry. Look at the steps here. And this is really the worst thing about these things. It's really hard to see. And I have my contacts out. So I've got plus 6.0. And it's still hard to see. So you have step 1. And then you have step 2. We're good so far. Where's step 3? Is it down here? No, it's here. Like, who does that? I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense because it goes around a circle, but it would always be 1, 2, 3, 4. Or maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, but not 1, 2, 3, 4. Weird. Being inspired to do 1718 with Through the Mud and the Blood. Not gonna do the Germans with the Pickelhaubes, huh? I think that's what makes them unique. I would do Frenchies and Germans and 14. And I've looked at those damn tumbling dice miniatures so many times because those figures are definitely my style. That you know, I can't be into everything, so. Yeah, like there's a horn here. It doesn't tell you where it goes. B7. Good thing I have a clue. I mean, the machine guns are beautiful. Those Czech machine guns are gorgeous. The etching on them and stuff. All right, let's go ahead and put the turret together because I don't think that's going to conflict with anything. I'm not going to follow the order that they say there because it doesn't. We need to eliminate some of these items before we can process where best to go next. And how can we clip this guy off? Let's go underneath with these things, which I don't use these very often because they're too big. Let's make sure we don't scuff up the bottom. Yeah, different things appeal to different people. I pretty much don't like anything American history. It just doesn't interest me at all. I'd like to check a First to Fight magazine one day, but I thought they had tutorials for building their models inside the mags that come with each kit. Well, fortunately, I don't need the tutorial. But I don't know who these are geared for, but 14-year-old can't do this. I mean, they could. They just wouldn't be able to do it well. You got to have these tools. You got to have patience, and you got to have these tools. I didn't have these tools when I was 20, you know? Did the Czechs ever get to use the 38s before they were annexed? Probably as training exercises. And I think that the Swedes got some of them as well, as the kind of a. Well, you would know that. Doesn't World of Tanks have Swedes? Yeah, I don't know exactly how that happened. They just walked in and said, "We're going to take your country." Well, we're going to fight. Well, it's too late. It's already ours. I don't. That's a political type of thing. So that's not something I'm really in the know or interested in. I'm not experts on Anschlusses and things like that. That's out of my realm. I'd have to read Inside the Third Reich or whatever. That's just not my cup of tea. The most Nazi-fied thing I've ever tried to read, and it was okay, except I needed a map to read it, was the SS at Normandy, or whatever the hell book it's I got a loose leaf. SS Panzer at Normandy or something like that. What's it called? Anyways, I got about halfway through that book. Something like that. I just need a freaking map to read that stuff. Now we're just getting it for battle ideas, but I like those Bill O'Reilly's killing books, but I'm not interested in reading the Killing the SS book. I don't want to read books about devout Nazis and shit like that. Don't they have a movie about? Yeah, there's a movie out that's about killing Heydrich. I'm not interested in reading that. I mean, watching that. Yeah. You have the First to Fight 35T and 35. Some of the parts are brittle when cutting, especially the MGs. Yeah. Yeah, they are. They're nicely detailed. Yeah, they're nicely detailed. Okay, where's the front plate for that turret? There she is. Yeah, I didn't have this stuff when I was 30. Well, I wasn't. Was I building models? Yeah, I didn't have these Well, you're a kid. You got limited funds. You're like, I'm not spending, instead of getting 2 model kits, like tools to build a model kit. Nobody does that. You're lucky if you have an X-Acto knife. And then you try to cut it really close to get it on the first pass. That's probably the biggest thing is don't try to do something on the first pass. Break it off from it. You're putting undue stress on some of these pieces that if they break on you, you're hosed. .35 THQ tank. I came really close to picking up the 235s from that Noble Knight had from Italy, which are the reissued SU ones, because they had them in stock. But at some point I had to decide, okay, well, I got to cut down how many things are in my box, and I decided not to get them. And this was the only first to fight vehicle that Noble Knight had in their inventory. That wasn't like a Polish vehicle or something like that. Which I don't have a problem with a Polish vehicle. I'm just not getting into that, and I really don't like the Germans with the white crosses. That just looks just wrong on so many levels. Okay, so we have this. I don't know what this obsession is with always making the turrets want the guns want to go up and down. Like, nope, mine are fixed in place. All right, we have a B5 machine gun as opposed to the B4. I don't know what's different about them. They look to be the same. Well, we'll put the correct one they tell me to. Here's B5. Okay. And the gun is B8. This one we got to be super careful with. So what's more delicate, the middle or the end? Probably the middle. See if we can cut this without putting stress on it. Once I get it off this piece, it's a piece of cake. Okay, now we'll do the end. Now we'll do this end. We can cut this way back here. But not with my skin. Okay. What else do we have? We'll put those things in for now. Yeah, you gotta use like tactics with these things. Okay, this one, it's got really nice detail. Now we are going to make this one the HQ command one, and I think it said here the instructions not to put a whole machine gun on it. I'm going to look at pictures before I make that decision. I don't want to find out, oh crap, it is supposed to have one, or there's some with it. But I got 3 of these guys, and they scale pretty close. This is the Plastic Soldier Company one. They're pretty darn close, which I'm very happy about. So, you made models when I was 10. Started with funny cars and went to World War II aircraft. Yeah, that was one of those things in the late 70s they would give you as birthday presents, as model kits. And I remember having a van with Luke Skywalker van or something. Star Wars had just come out. It was an AMT or something like that kit, and it had a Luke Skywalker van or some shit like that. I built a few cars, but I never really cared for them. I like more violent subjects. Aircraft. Funny, the first military model I ever built, I ended up buying myself. I'm pretty sure it was the monogram snap kit of the Flying Tigers, P-40. Which I always liked because of the tiger mouth. Alright, let's get rid of that piece. Okay, it's going to be inside the turret. We don't need to spend a day worrying about that. Alright. They drilled out the freaking 37mm barrel. Alright, let's see how much closer we're going to need our friend, Mr. Stickum, as a cushion. Sturm M38 kind of looked like the Panzer 38, but it was based on the L60. You know, speaking of 60, the one thing that's hard to get is a good model of a T60. I think Ace makes one in 72nd scale. When I was building 135th, I built a T60 in 135th, and I had to find one. It was difficult. I believe it ended up being a Russian kit. let's see, if I screw this up, I got a bunch of check 38s from Plastic Soldier Company, unused pieces I can use. Okay, we haven't screwed it up yet. We got closer, good. Now we can tinker with the X-Acto knife. All right. When you use this, I go across and pull up towards the end, so I'm not gouging the end. This is one of these things that being nearsighted is actually really helpful. I guess the video is working okay today. We don't have the audiobook version. That used to happen a lot more often than it does now, fortunately. Main thing is you can't rush this phase. There's some things that are just going to take a while to do. Do all this care and then you run some game with it, and the first time somebody breaks one of your barrels. Yeah. I'm not running anything at a convention, sorry. Not this stuff. Cart all this stuff around and worried about your stuff that you've spent all this time on. The last show I went to, somebody would just, I saw some unbelievable stuff. Unbelievable handling of somebody else's figures. And I'm like, I'm convinced, I'm not bringing my stuff to a show ever again. It wasn't any of my stuff, thankfully. Just grabbed a pile of 28mm figures like this and just dumped them where they were going to go. I'm like, a friend of mine played World Tanks with me the other day. Noticed I put Ukrainian flag on all my Russian tanks. Oh. I don't do any of that decoration stuff. All right. This needs to go through the front plate. we're going to actually have to do something that I've thought about before, and I haven't had to implement it yet, and that is to use a paintbrush for the applicator, because this, to me, applicator is excellent, but I've used it so much. It's worse than that. I can't even use that one. I got to use a really, really thin one. I don't have to. I choose to. There we go. This thing's not used for much. Let's put that in there. There we go. There we go. You go away. This one, we want to use the big one. We want to weld this thing all the way in there. Okay, and I think this is going to be attachable from the front. Let's do it. This is another thing I would have never done as a kid. What do you mean pre-test things if they fit? I'm not going to do all that. Well, then you're going to have problems, kid. Okay, we can safely put that together. Cool. I would have never done that as a kid. That's a nice fit. Okay. The cupola, if you want to call it that. It's kind of short for one, but I haven't played World of Tanks in a long time. This takes too long for the next battle to load up. And I just don't want to interact with folks I don't know. Yeah, this is where this nearsightedness is a huge advantage. Well, you guys can just put on magnifiers, but I don't have to do that for this. Okay, we have this goes like this. Make sure we're looking okay fit-wise. It's bouncing back up a little bit. Probably because these tabs don't fit in here properly. So if I could just take these tabs off, just eliminate them completely. Yeah, they bounce up. I'm just going to eliminate these tabs completely because this thing's totally flush. It's kind of unnecessary anyways. Now we have a flush fit. Mr. Christensen, good morning. Okay. And the cupola is not the same size as it is here. It's smaller here, go figure. The plastic soldier company happens to have everything oversized. Their cupola is smaller than their competition in this case. Hold on one second, I'll be right back in a moment. Okay, let's check and see just how these vehicles that have been the wash done to them. They're still not quite dry. And this is the strong tone wash on there. You want to make sure I don't pull any of that strong tone. It's probably not going to take longer than maybe 30 more minutes. That's why we're working on this on the side. I don't like to hop around, but sometimes you have to, or you basically have idle time. Czechoslovakian Panzers, that's right. You know, I can't ever call these things other than Czech 38s. I can't call them Panzer 38Ts. I just always call them Czech 38s. I call them nothing other than that. I don't know. It's just what I've always called them. Mr. Harvey, welcome back. Harvey doesn't. I thought you had a little icon, not an H. H is for Harvey. I don't know. B3 is a periscope that goes up here. B3. Is it this one? No, that's the no-tech light. I'm sorry, the horn. There she is. Periscoping. Yeah, this is a headquarters vehicle. You have a scenario. Take out the Panzerführer. Okay. That was B3, wasn't it? It was. It doesn't look like it fits there. It looks like it's too big. The bottom of it is too big. Maybe I'm going to leave. Let's not take all of it off. Let's leave a little nub. Nub-dub. Far too technical? Oh, you're like I am then. I just figured out how to do shit just by trial and error. The other day when we were having internet problems, I'm sorry guys, I can't help you. I did everything, I started everything up the same way I always do, and I don't have problems, and this time there's issues. I am not one that can solve it. I'm just not. And that kind of stuff is really frustrating. I don't mind this stuff taking a long time. I have zero tolerance for, you know, computer glitches. I'll have this problem that'll happen at work is, you know, like you come in the morning and you can't open an Excel file. Why can't I open it? Because I already have it open. Like, how is that possible? Like, I'm already logged in and into this file and I can't open it. Stupid stuff like that. Technology is great when it works. When it doesn't, I wish it was never invented. Okay, there is a tiny piece called F1, and it tells you an arrow, but it doesn't tell you where to put it on there. So that's going to be one of those, we're going to have to look at it with photo evidence. Learning to do things by trial and error is great, unless you're a pilot or a surgeon. That's right. That's true. I make lots of mistakes here, and I'd like to think that I learn by them. But it takes too much effort to try to edit all this stuff out of a video. I don't try to pretend like I'm some kind of god that never makes mistakes, you know. Maybe you'll learn something by me making myself doing it incorrectly. I don't know. Yeah, there's also a piece R4 down here. No instructions. I mean, I got plus 6.0 going on, and this stuff is not well documented where things go. We've got tools, but no spots for the tools. Definitely have some things that need to be, here's F2. No tech light. F2. No arrows to where it goes. So we'll have to look at photographic evidence. Now, there's some of it right here on the side of the turret. But there's no little spot for it to go either. I'm not very impressed. I'm not very impressed. But here is the no-tech light. We're going to drill a little hole, and that way we have a positioner for it. Make sure we go down and... Actually, this is the right size. Okay, according to this, should be right in the middle about here. I don't care if it goes all the way through. 14-year-old my ass. Just about everybody, unless they're a airline pilot, an attorney, a surgeon, we pretty much go to school to do one thing and we do something different. And almost all of us are fixers of some form of another. Somebody above your pay grade says, hey, I want to do this. Well, you have to figure out how to do it. And also, almost all of us deal with some form of customer service. Just about everybody. Your customer base may be very limited, but you still have customers. So I can't stand when I go out in the public and I get bad customer service. Like, I just want half the customer service I provide to my customers. Is that possible? Well, the answer to that is, of course, no. Okay. And this happy no-tech light goes. We're going to use this because otherwise we saturate the whole area with this stuff and it starts making it look different. We're going to use our fingers because otherwise, actually, you know what? We should be able to use this. Well, everybody sings the praises of using this. And yeah, it's not too bad. Where's my super tweezers? The Swiss tweezers. I don't know where these came from, but these things are awesome. Okay. Keep calling that a no-tech light. It's the horn. Started playing bolt action, and the Warlord kits are terrible for not having instructions. If Google can't provide an image, then it's trial and error. Wow. And these should be pretty big. A lot of kits have really bad instructions. You know, the instructions aren't, you know, you could figure out how to do it. The whole point is to get it right the first time. That's what instructions are for. So you don't, you know, you're not fumbling about. Okay, here is that little step that's on the turret, or a little grab handle. Let's go ahead and cover this thing so she don't go flying. I was like, well, that didn't work. It disappeared. That's not going to work. I can already tell that's not going to work. All right. Let's hold this thing down. This may be one of those things I glue on there, and then after it's glued, I can gently go over with this X-Acto knife and trim it. It's just a matter of not having anywhere to grab it from. I did that on the Vision blocks on the Panzer IV. I put them on there, and it was a tiny little bit like there is here, a flash. I went after it was glued and trimmed it off, and it worked out just fine. Warlord kits don't have enough rifles either. The older ones were nearly impossible to make real-life TONE compliant platoons. Yeah, I don't like plastic figures. I just don't. All right. There she is. How do you spell that? I'm pretty much sure it starts with an H and there's a Y in there somewhere. That's the problem with these small parts. Is they're hard to grab. And they slip on you while you're grabbing them. Yeah, there's a tiny little bit of flash on there. Once that's welded on there, you'll be able to come in there with a sharp X-Acto and just trim it gently. Okay, so that part is done. That's everything for the turret. That's everything for the turret, yeah. What kind of a fit do we have on the turret? Oh. It rotates better than almost anything. Like, I don't have to trim it or nothing. Okay. Perfect. Always a fan of good news. Okay, there's this elusive... Oh, now we're done with this. We have this elusive piece. Deep red. Welcome. Have great fun building up the plastic infantry, but then again, I know where the arms stick onto the torsos. Hail and well met, old son. Welcome. Okay, this elusive piece 4. Let's hold this thing down. It's a tiny little clip that's not well documented where it goes. It's one of these things that if you didn't put it on the vehicle, nobody would know. Except you. All right. So, that little bastard is not well documented where it goes at all. It's on the back somewhere, and it's on the left-hand side of the back. I'm gonna go look at it. I'm gonna go look at it. I don't have a Czech 38 book. Actually, that's not true. That is incorrect statement. That is an incorrect statement. I actually got this in New York City. Just gotta find it. I'm bad about putting things back where they go, and it may not have ever gone back up here. Which means it's, well, before I spend time looking for it and find out that it doesn't actually have what the drawing I'm looking for, I'll just look online. I have a BT7 versus Czech 38 book from Osprey, but I don't necessarily need pictures of anywhere. I need them of the back plate. Yes, this is a Czech 38 command version. I've got 3 of these from Plastic Soldier Company, and this is the one from the First to Fight. So let's open up a window here. Again, like Harvey said that he wasn't a techie guy. I'm not either. I don't know how to bring you guys along on this travel. Panzer 38. Actually, I could figure it out. I just haven't. 38T. Why are you searching for things already? Because this mouse thing is too sensitive. Rear. Okay, good. Images. It's not there. There's that latch. I'm glad I didn't build this one by Pegasus. I can only imagine how. Wow, I don't see any of these that have that piece. Is it on here? No. There's a ton of schemes for these guys. Oh, they make a detail kit for it of like extra junk on top of it. Oh, it's beautiful. Except it costs more than the model. And then there's no way you can turn your turret. Got too much junk. I'm going to leave it off. I'm going to leave the thing off. You saw a Hetzer that has been converted to an aircraft roll using a single 20mm sticking out through the top. It looked awesome. So does a Panzer 1. A Panzer 1 with an anti-aircraft thing looks incredible. A Panzer 1 is a very, in my opinion, an extremely ugly vehicle. Which it's unusual to use a German vehicle to be unattractive. Generally, the German vehicles are at least wicked looking. It's unusual to have like, man, that German vehicle's ugly. There are some. I don't like the Steyr trucks. I think the Steyr trucks are really unattractive. How are we doing on this? Because that's what we came for, is to get these guys painted. All right, I think we're ready to switch gears. So we're going to put Mr. Flakpanzer away. Not Flakpanzer. He got Flakpanzer on the brain. Check 38. Let's put our glasses up, make sure we don't leave anything. And go back to working on the Panzer IVs, that the intention is to make them look this type of scheme. The abortion that's known as that King Tiger. Terrible kit. I looked this week like, should I just buy a detailed the set? But man, I gotta buy all kinds of stuff to do it. I'm just probably gonna just paint it as is, or not build the other one and call it a day. Okay, we're painting, so we got to get rid of this. Put this one back. We have the two Panzer IVs and a Zwerboy. Okay, we've got German gray that's been dry brushed on these on a black background, and then we did the strong tone wash, which, how far along am I? I'm probably halfway through that one. I probably could stand to get another one. Okay, and we're dry on the strong tone. Okay, so we're going to come back with a German gray, same color. We're going to dry brush over it again. And of course, we've got the turrets as well. 1 second. Okay. Video of German restored vehicles driving through woodland when they called it a Berger Panther, which I thought was recovery. Now, all right, so we're just going to dry brush over this again. Let's find our palette that we used. Just makes it easier than. Hetzer's got a Hetz. Yeah, I got one of those to do. With the rubber band tracks. I'm not worried about rubber band track. After putting that King Tiger together, I can pretty much do anything. A lot of these kits I had 20 years ago, and I stopped building them because I would run into a conflict. One of the conflicts is you try to put the track on, and you break off the axle that goes on the sprocket thing. So I went to fix it by drilling out and putting a pin in it, because 20 years ago I don't think I had a pin vise. I'm pretty sure I didn't have a pin vise. And a lot is, the skills that I've learned along the way working on 15mm metal stuff has translated well to going back and doing this stuff. And so I'm fixing the sprocket wheel, fixing the axle, and in doing that, the one on the other side breaks. So I fix it too, so it's not breaking now. But it's stuff that that when I was a kid or a young adult or even older than that, I would encounter stuff that would just throw me for a curveball. I wouldn't know what to do, so I just moved on to something else. So one of the first things I did was repair a bunch of old kits that I had that I couldn't proceed anymore on. And it was nice to be able to solve that problem. And it's just a matter of like, no, you're not keeping me from not finishing this model. Let's go to let's figure this out. Okay, just a light dry brush of the same gray. I just decided to do it this way instead of giving it a wash in those black areas and washing black. I find this is quicker. And it keeps me from having to paint the entire vehicle overall. It's my form of modulation. Okay, now the turrets with their added on bracket underneath to move the antenna off to the side. Now pretty much the only thing that's still way off is where the antenna is. It doesn't go into the hole, but I've just accepted it and left it that way because it's going to be more durable than trying to make a little piece. You know, we're not taking these to an IPMS show. I have fond memories of this vehicle because it's one of those that I had done 1/35th scale. And I think I made it an Africa Corps one with a Verlinden figure that had a mask on, like a bandana, as the tank commander. I don't have pictures of that stuff. That was almost 40, not 40 years ago, but 35 years ago. 30 years ago? Something like that. That was pre-pictures. That was before you brought a camera with you everywhere you went. So not a big difference right now with this color. The next one will be a bigger difference. And the next one after that will also be a bigger difference. Now these are going to be for Barbarossa. They're not going to be specific to any particular unit. I would have liked to make them for 11th Panzer, but 11th Panzer did a 2-digit code on their tanks. I'm not a big fan of Panzers with 2-digit codes. I like the 3 digits. And we'll see what I can get, because I also don't like numbers going over this block on the side of the turret. I may have to do that when I get around to doing the Africa Corps vehicles, because it seems like the Africa Corps had really, really big numbers on them, probably so they don't get mistaken for a British tank and knocked out at a distance. Okay, so we have that. So the next step is going to be, I gotta remember if I need to do this with a wet palette or not. I think I will. I will put this on with the wet palette. Let's move this off to the side, only because we have a concoction of. And this is what I'm used to. I'm used to be able to just hop from one color to the next, not this waiting for a wash to dry. Waiting for washes to dry is kind of something I'm new to. We're gonna move this there boy off to the side. See how this is doing. It's okay. Not smelling mildewy. All right, and we're going to take this German gray, with, this is the discovery I made, Luftwaffe blue, which is not very blue. It's like a blue gray. Because I like my Panzer gray vehicles to have a little bit of a blue tint. And some people use it like a wash or a filter. Those products are too expensive to experiment with. I just put them here just to kind of keep them wet. And then we're going to go over this with this color. This is the same method I use for the Czech 38 that I have. The Czech 38s that I have. And the Panzer IIs and the Panzer IIIs. I've been really happy with this method. It's pretty easy to do. course, all this will be weathered as well, so. Really looking forward to seeing how these really basic models are going to look, because these are just armor fast. And I love the plastic these things are made out of. It sands like incredible. Incredible. Okay, might as well do the, and here you can see the difference. It's subtle. Actually, you may not be able to see the difference. The lighting's messed up. It's too powerful. The lighting's geared up for me, not for you guys. Just gonna have to trust me on that. Jump right on time. That's right. It looks like those Panzers we built. That's right. We built them. You're egging me on. Can't wait to see what these things look like. One of my favorite vehicles, one of my favorite German vehicles is a Panzer 4D with the turret storage thing on the back. Without it, I'm out, you know. Totally don't play that. So it's funny, I was looking at some other decal options for it. I'm not buying them, I'm putting them on my own. But one of the things that I noticed was that there's now a bunch of them that don't have that thing underneath the turret that pushes the antenna off the side. But I actually like the fact that I made it out of brass wire. This is really my first experiment with brass wire. It's not something I've used before. And we even put a little holder there for the spare wheel in the back, based on photographic evidence. Pics or it didn't happen. Here's your pic. It happened. Okay. And the turrets. And then the next stage will be just this straight. And then the next stage will be this with some sand. And then we'll pick out details that need to pop, like edges and stuff like that. But I don't like two turret Panzer codes. 11th Panzer Division seemed to have had 2-digit codes in white. And I like 3-digit codes. But we'll see. We'll see how it comes out. The other ones have 3-digit codes as well. I want to see if I've got yellow ones. I don't think I do. So the yellow numbers always look good, in my opinion. On the Panzer gray body. We're just kind of roughly going over this for modulation purposes. That's a word that didn't exist when I did modeling in the 90s. Modulation. An inconsistent look. So it doesn't look like a factory finish. And what I do is I tend to not dry brush the front of the gun, and that way you get like a free smoky appearance to the front of the gun without doing anything to it. Okay, that's done. We're going to take this straight. We're going to need more of it. I'm just putting it on this wet palette so it'll stay wet. And always start with the running gear if you can remember. You know, we'll see if the people outside don't get too loud. If so, we'll have to cut off my overly receptive microphone that picks up everything. Maybe I just need to talk over them. But I do like my Panzers. I prefer them in gray. They just look more panzery. And even though one of my favorite German vehicles is a Panther, just by how it looks, they don't make them in gray. Actually, I did see somebody do a diorama of one in gray, and it just looks wrong. It just looks so wrong. All right, let's see if I can. Yeah, and I always like to. Where did she go? You know what? Let's pull out a Panzer IV that's a short barrel and a Panzer III, the cousins that these guys are going to ride with. Here's a Panzer III from Plastic Soldier Company, and here's the Panzer IV, which is an F1 from Hasegawa. This one was done a little earlier, so it may not be exactly the same. Yeah, so this is a. I actually like the earlier one more than this one. This one was probably painted by hand overall gray. I didn't dry brush on top of the black. But that's kind of the look that we're looking for. What it look like on the screen for you guys. Look a lot darker than they really are. But they're fairly dark. Yeah, I love those yellow numbers. So, yeah, they're going to ride with those guys. Aussie Armor Museum finished that grant totally operational. They're starting a new one partially operational. I'd say it sounds like a dream job, but it probably isn't. I want to be the consultant on the paint. Working on a lot of those engines and stuff like that is probably a pain in the ass in the confined compartments that they're doing it in. Let's just go over. Make sure we don't miss anything. Oh, here we go. Okay, we're back. Just so you guys know, about this time in a week, we're going to have probably about a week of uninterrupted stuff. So if the background stuff bothers you, unfortunately, I do not live alone. It's just one of those things. So, but in about a week, I'm going to have about a week to myself. So we're going to power through. You know, I always say, you know, I'm going to get so much stuff done when there's nobody around. But the reality is it doesn't really change that much. Okay, I think we're done with this. Let's do the hole on the other one the same way. Let's see what it is. Let's watch. Sorry, where's that? Yeah. So speaking of Lees, right? You said Lee, not a Grant, right? A Grant. A Grant is infinitely better than looking than a Lee, and that's the one thing that the Brits do. The Brits will take some U.S. piece of equipment that, in my opinion, looks pretty unattractive, and they find a way to make it more attractive. Whether it's a Honey or a Grant or their Shermans with their cool paint schemes in the desert, or Kitty Hawk. Although I like the P40 anyways. That's probably a bad example, but a Grant is definitely better looking than a Lee. But speaking of Grant, which reminded me of Lee, so I'm reading about the Panthers. That this, like I mentioned earlier, there's this. Is this the same one? Am I being incompetent? Probably. Let's just go over both of them. There's an article I came across. So I got a couple of Panthers from Zvezda that I'm going to specifically make for Kursk. There's a skirmish scenario that has 2 of them in it, and I got 2 of them as well. And I'm going to specifically make them for Kursk. So I was like in the middle of doing like a deep dive of how they're painted and such and so forth. And there's a lot of information on it, honestly. And this one guy, his name is Mike. I don't remember what his name is. When we bring up his site, we'll give him full credit for it because he deserves an award named after him. Honestly, he did a lot of stuff that I would just end up redoing. But he went through and did a deep dive on the Panthers at Kursk and the numbering system and so forth on them. And he has a lot of writing. I love doing research. I love bringing the research to you guys, surfing on the internet. I absolutely hate writing things down. I love taking notes. I hate putting things in sentence format. It's a little bit of too much busy work for my taste. So, but he did an excellent job on his site, and he was It talks about like the actions that they took place, and there was one where they threw a bunch of Lees at him at Kursk, because Kursk is kind of interesting, and there's several vehicles that kind of make an appearance in there. Actually, there's many vehicles that make it the first appearance in them that of any time. Obviously you know about the Panthers and the Ferdinands, but these guys appear at Kursk for the first time. And Churchills were there, Lend-Lease Churchills, and Lees as well. And they threw Lees apparently up against the Panthers, and let's just say they didn't do really well, obviously. That's a terrible idea. But I was just reading about that recently. And yeah, the Panthers were deployed in a place where they had to go across an anti-tank ditch that was very, very wide. I believe it was 30 meters wide. It was very wide, and it was like 8 meters deep. And they got stuck and all kinds of stuff. You know, you have a 45-ton tank that's already over-designed, and you have to go against marshy ground like that. And I don't think that the Panther had really bad, even though it was heavy, I don't think it had a very bad, it didn't have high ground pressure. I mean, it had pretty wide tracks. but still, I read about that recently. But this guy named Mike, I don't know what his last name is. We'll find out what his last name is when we do that, the deep dive on the Panther, which we'll do that when we put those guys together. I did build a Panther D way back in my 1/35th scale days for Kursk. And I remember I took the Tamiya kit and I bought a bunch of extra parts for it, which at the time was really expensive because I was not well employed at the time. I remember the kit might have cost, I don't know, $30. I don't know if it was actually 20, but $30, and the spare parts were like 50 or something like that. And I don't have pictures of all that stuff. Not that it'd be worth looking at. That was a long time ago. Okay, now we got 2 Panzer IVs. Let's get the 2 turrets going. But the decals for this gives you like 7 different vehicles, and they're beautiful decals. The ones for the Panthers, I think I can only get 2. And I have 2 Panthers, so I have to build those. Now, I think one of them is like 445, and another one is 434 or whatever, so I can mix up the numbers. But he actually does in his article, it tells you what the numbers of all the Panthers that are there. So we definitely will not me numbering them something that they were not. But kind of a cool article. And that's the kind of stuff that I like. That's the kind of stuff that I like reading, that tactical stuff. It's tactical game, it's tactical combat. It's specific to vehicles, so you got the modeling aspect, and I like the tactical combat stuff. You know, reading like, you know, a book on like, you know, Eisenhower or Manstein or something like that just would bore the crap out of me. I'm not interested in playing games on that level. Although I think that most people that are war gamers and like war games prefer strategic type games just from the polls that I've seen. I'm personally am not a fan of it. I like things on the level of ASL or more tactical. You just get it's a better narrative that I'm interested in reading. That's the narrative that I'm interested in learning about. You're going to have to hear the lawnmower sounds in the back. I'm sorry. It's either that or no video, so we'll see how far we can get along with this. But I think that this method is pretty quick, considering the results it yields. And even though I'm doing dry brushing, having the wet palette here keeps the paint color alive, so to speak. All right, so we're gonna put more of this Luftwaffe uniform. And then we're going to get our friend Dark Sand. And I got this idea from somebody. I don't know who it is. I want to say it was, I guess I should probably go look so I can give him credit, but what's his name? Sledgehammer or something Sledgehammer. I would have mixed white and it would have turned out like shit. It would have looked too washed out. They used Dark Sand in their mix. The video I saw on Shermans, how they did Shermans. Because I didn't want to do 20 vehicles and not be happy with how they turned out. So back in October, or actually before October, when I did them, I watched this video and I really liked what this person had to say. now we're going to go over ever so gently. Of course, we're going to weather on top of this. Sonic Sledgehammer, I think is what the guy's name is. I think that's who it is. He had a Sherman video. He made the Shermans look really nice. I'm pretty sure this was his idea, including the wash. Now, my idea is the next step. The next couple steps. Because I'm definitely a fan of the anti-chipping coalition. The chipping looks good on 1/35 scale models. On models this small, they just don't. It just doesn't do it for me. It doesn't give me the look I'm looking for. Okay, let's not overdo it because we do need to weather on top of that. Chipping didn't exist when I was doing 1/35 scale models. The pastels was all the rage. Taking pastels and taking them on a piece of, what do you call that stuff? Sandpaper. Getting the powders out and putting the powders where you wanted them to go, and then fixing them. Praying to your God of choice and then fixing them was the rage. And I am actually not a fan of dry brushing, but I'm going over it with so many different variations of the color that it doesn't feel like the dry brushing of old, which is really what I don't like. It's just a little too basic, the dry brushing of old. Okay, so we'll do the turrets and then we'll start doing my spin on it. Which are what I like to call scratches. This is just modulation interpretation. Okay, and the next turret is, where'd she go? Oh, here she is. Oh, it's sitting on top of that, no wonder it's... Okay, I don't want to keep going because then the next thing you know, you end up with a vehicle that's way too light for my taste. Okay, so the next step is what I like to call scratches. It's going to involve the magic liquid, Flow-Aid, and it's going to involve a really small brush. Like that one. And we will start off with a color like this. Might actually be a little too light. Yeah, it's good. And it just adds some imperfections to the finish, so it doesn't look the same everywhere. And then we're still going to, my wife's been in here. You're still going to end up doing dry brushing, like weathering dry brushing. So this just subtly stays kind of in the background. So when it gets dry brushed, it doesn't look the same everywhere. And I've been pretty happy with it. I'm gonna put a whole lot underneath there because a lot of that ends up getting covered up. There's no method to it. And we just can ignore that muffler. That whole muffler is going to be one rusty bastard. It's going to be one rusty trombone. Oh. Everything can be perfectly clean on a tank. And then you got one of those German mufflers and it's all orange like you wouldn't believe. Hole this one too, and that's all it is. It's nothing crazy. Then we'll go in with a similar color and we're going to highlight all things that should pop, like edges and stuff like that. And then we paint details like the jack and things like that. Road wheels in black, track, and then we'll weather. Put everybody to sleep. I should change the name of my paint sessions after I'm done with them to some of the weirdest terms I used in the paint session. If that was the case, I'd call this one Wehrmacht Wet Dreams and Rusty Trombones. And people be like, what? What are you talking about? Now, I first became aware of all the Wehrmacht Wet Dreams when I was first doing modeling. And you know, you've got Tamiya, which I'm a huge Tamiya fan, huge fan of them. Back in the day, they were the bomb. You couldn't touch them. There's nobody that had better stuff than them, that had the best instructions. And this is around 1989, 88, 89, 90, that kind of stuff when I first started doing modeling things. Nobody could touch them. And they're a Japanese company. And they make tanks. And they make a German one, and a German one, a German one, a German one, a German one, an American, and a Russian, and a German one, and a German one. It's like, dude, I mean, I understand the German stuff is cool, but other people have cool stuff too, and the Germans have to fight somebody, you know, and everybody else outproduced them. So, you know, but the German shit sells, I guess. I mean, the German stuff is cool, but, you know, so is some of the Soviet stuff. You gotta paint stuff for other folks too. I think they made a single cruiser tank. That's not true. They made the Cromwell. I'm not a Cromwell fan. I'm not a fan of British vehicles when they started using an American star on them. Which is funny because I did a little bit of research on Italy because I say I am going to do later war German British vehicles, but it's going to be in Italy. In Italy, they used, it seems like a different base color other than the bronze green. And I've seen decal sets for the British tanks in Italy, and they use the roundel on either the engine, deck, or on the top of the turret. That I like. Okay, the roundel is a great symbol. You know, you don't want to take a beautiful aircraft like the Spitfire and put like a white star on it. That's stupid. That was the name of my Oompa Cross ska band. Which one? Wehrmacht, Wet Dreams, and Rusty Trombones? Actually, wouldn't that be a good name for like an old school jazz band? Call it Rusty Trombones. I like jazz, but I don't like old school jazz. It's too chaotic. I'm not a fan of chaos in any form. Except when it relates to a skirmish war game. Then yes, I like managing chaos. Oompa Cross Band. That would be like Bavarian ska. I remember when that was a thing. That like came and went. I like ska, except it was too fast. Maybe that was the whole point. It just needed to be slowed down a little bit. I like brass in things. I think it's classy. You know, to put it in things that maybe doesn't traditionally belong. Are you a musician? I am not at all. More is better. Don't I mean less is better. Don't go crazy on this stuff. Just a little bit to make each of them a little bit individual. And some make it look like some racist with hobnail boots crawled all over it. In no way, shape, or form. Yeah, I'm not music. So I am really good about food generally. I am very accepting of different foods. As long as it's not something weird I'm going to eat. I'm just saying, you know, I like Indian food and I like all that kind of stuff. I'm less, but there's other things that I'm not very tolerant of. Music is one of them. I dislike most music. I'm sorry. It just doesn't jive with me. I dislike most art. Maybe not most art. There's a lot of art that I'm like, come on, man. And probably the thing I'm the worst about is smells. I am really particular about colognes slash perfumes. Okay, we're gonna have to paint some detail. Look at the top of that lid. It's totally flat. It's got nothing going for it. We're gonna make that thing look, give it some personality. Okay, now speaking of personality, this tank has some personality. Or these tanks have some personality. They got some irregular pattern stuff on them. Now it's time to get crazy. We're gonna start with the turrets. And we're gonna mix the same batch. And we're gonna make sure that all these edges pop, that should pop. And dry brushing should do this, but we wanna make sure we don't miss any of it. I'm surprised how well the lid to this turned out. First I'm like, man, this doesn't fit at all. This doesn't fit well at all. We got to stop at 9, so we'll see how far this takes us. Same thing with these little latches. You're not particular about scents. Apparently, your body's 90% of common sense 5 minutes after application smell like a lemon dishwashing liquid on me. I don't know what you mean by that. Apparently, your body is. Okay, 90% of common sense 5 minutes after application smell like lemon dishwashing liquid. Interesting. Well, so there's this cologne that a coworker used to have. It smelled wonderful. It's a dude. Sorry, the dude smelled great. I'd tell him. I don't wear cologne at work. It would be stupid to wear cologne at a construction place. No, but it smelled good. So I'm like, okay, what is it, dude? What is this? So I went and I tried hunting it down. I went to the store, put some on me. It smelled like crap on me. So it just, different smells smell different on different people. I don't, there's too many things that are musky. I don't like anything musky. I like clean. So there's only very few colognes that I'll wear. Same thing on women. There's too many smells I can't stand. So my wife will always make fun of me. You always want me to wear something fruity. I'm like, that's what I like, how it smells. You know, I don't like roses or musk-like, or I don't give a shit how expensive the perfume is. It smells like crap. Okay, I think that's about where this needs to be. Let's grab the Panzer IV book while I'm thinking about it. The Panzer Colors Panzer IV book. It's my go-to thing, which hopefully I put it back again where it goes. I should have. I had trouble finding it the other day, and it was exactly where it was supposed to be. Didn't know I had 2 books on the Panther, or I would have sold one of them to Noble Knight. No, it's not where it's supposed to be. Here, it's here. All right. I want the top of the hatch of a Panzer IV. And a line drawing will work just fine. Okay, it's got a center split. Well, this one has a center split, but we'll make it stand out more. All right. So the same, this is, what I'm about to do is the shit I love to do. I love to do this stuff. Inventing something where there isn't anything. All right, let's do a center split. All right. We're actually going to take this off this alligator clip. I've got a little bit more control with it this way. Let's do a color check. And thin it down a little bit more. All right, and we're going to put a light color line on both sides. Okay. This is what the flow aid does. It keeps your brush from sticking. All right, so we're going to do that. That fits inside and the real one doesn't. See, that's the thing, is the real hatch fits inside of a ring. But this one just sits on top of it. Let's just go ahead and go all the way around. Okay, we need more detail than that, 'cause that's pretty flat looking still. We didn't do much to it. But there's not much to it other than that. Oh, the reality is, if I'm not happy with it, I can come back and touch it because it's on the outside of the vehicle. It's easy to manipulate it. And the one with the open hatch, of course, will have a commander in it, which unfortunately will be wearing a black uniform. I'm not a fan of those black uniforms. They don't stand out very nicely. They could be better with different kind of uniforms, but I think that's not bad for starters. Looks a lot brighter than it is. And of course it's going to have weathering over it, so. Which comes after the decals. All right, so that turret is done. Let's put it back on the clippy. I don't remember if the inside of the German hatches are a light color or the hatch itself is gray. I'm going to leave it gray. It just looks weird when they do it a light color. And it'll also be more visible from the air, which is the whole reason that the German vehicles were gray to begin with. As far as I understand it, is for aerial photography. Blend in a little bit more. This version of Panzer IV has kind of like a little sunroof. A little flap out here. I don't think you get any wind going in there, even if you had this thing cranking as fast as it'll go, I don't think you'd get any wind go in there. But just to give some of those fumes to dissipate. I haven't really even looked at the decals used for it. I may have some trouble getting the German cross on the side of the hull. There's just hardly any space for it. Other than on the back panel. But I haven't even looked at the numbers to see what I have available. I can't bring myself to paint these by hand. They're too perfect in most pictures. Unless you're going over a Zimmerit or something like that. They're too perfect to hand paint them. But I have a ton of numbers. To choose from. My time is correct, isn't it? Yeah. Sometimes this clock runs slow and I don't know why. I think it's because somehow that hand gets pulled out a little bit and it gets delayed for a little bit. I'm not really sure what the reason is. And the one in the car runs ahead of time. Always runs fast and like it's running away from you. Where's the other turret? Okay. And now the holes. We want all these edges to pop. There's all kinds of details on these models. You want to make sure you see them at a distance. Splinter splash. I think that's what that is. Pistol port on the open hatches. On the driver and the assistant driver's hatches. Well, that's where we're going to have to stop. There's certainly more to do, but it's along those lines. I do want to take a look at one thing before I stop, even if it's only for a moment, because I haven't looked at it all myself. And that is the numbering options that I have. Soviet one. German one is just massive. All the stuff should be in here. So I'm not worried about the Balkan choruses. I got plenty of those. So we're looking for numbers, and we're looking for numbers that are that size or smaller. We don't want these huge monster ones. And let's see what I have to choose from. Okay. Not these. I'm not worried about the crosses. I got plenty to choose from. I'll paint my own of those. I'm not worried about that. Too big, too big. Wrong color. They got to be white or gray, and preferably solid white. Not gray. Yellow is what I meant. No. No, no. No. Nope. Nope. And I'm not getting more. The Skytrex ones, I'm almost certainly going to be some of that. Nope. These are just solid numbers. When I want to keep these for the Panzer 3s and 4s later war. It's probably going to be these. And one second. All right. Not that one. Here's more 423s, because this is from the Hasegawa kit. I could certainly use those numbers and switch the order of them around. But then I only have that for one of the two Panzer IVs. I wouldn't have it for the other one. So I'm not going to go in that route. Okay. No. It's the petting house ones. Nope. 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 Okay, so we have this. All right, so here's what we're going to do. Here's what we're going to do number-wise. I can tell you already. Is there anything on here? No. Not worried about the Balkan Kreuzes. Okay, we're going to take this big set, but the smaller one here. So we're going to put on the back of the turret, we're going to make a number, probably with white, 3-digit number back here in the back of the turret, and it's going to match the number that's here, it's small white, that's going to be underneath the vision port. That's probably what it's going to be. And these are cool. These are, who even makes these things? Model Bow, I think is what it is. These are amazing because you don't have to make any of them up. They already have them there. So we took some 300 thing out there. I'm probably going to do 400 series numbers, more than likely, for both of these two. And that way they could, fourth company. It's either fourth or eighth company. I think I'm going to do fourth company. for these guys. And we'll have big number. Unlike these that have small on the side and small on the back, I'm going to do small on the side, big on the back. And, oh, these are just 187th. These are 172nd, right? We don't need to use the 187th ones. Those are like for smaller, even smaller vehicles. So some of these, and then the equivalent, they're similar style numbers, aren't they? Well, these have kind of like a little dash in them. People are just going to have to deal with that. Yeah, and we'll do bigger numbers on the back. So, yeah, so that's the plan. When we return, we'll need a little bit more detailing to do, and then we can start that so that we can get them to look like this, even though right now they look like that. Well, you guys just aren't getting a good picture quality. Let's see. No, move them. Always move them the opposite direction that I want to. There's a little bit of a sheen on here from the. Oh, it's actually the light. There we go. So, anyways, to be continued. Panzers to be continued. Okay, folks. Well, we'll see you on the next one.